Okay, so we've talked about the things that can make you lose money. We've talked about the things that can destroy your wealth. We talked about litigation. We talked about devastation, illness. But what about having an estate plan? Now here's the thing, okay? There's nothing sexy about estate plans. Why do I need an estate plan? What are you even talking about, David? Is this like trusts and what wealthy people do? It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with who's gonna get what you get when you're not here anymore, okay? And so maybe you're a family, maybe you're just starting out, or maybe you've got a lot of kids, or maybe you're in retirement years. You've worked all your life to build this wealth up, and you haven't thought about who's going to get it if you didn't make it home. If you and your spouse flew to Cancun and the jet didn't make it back, who would get it? Well, the good news is the state already has a will, and they will decide, a judge will decide who gets what. And I'm sure you don't want that to happen. So what I walk clients through about estate plan is, first of all, you need to have, at the minimum, you need to have a will. And if you and your spouse love each other, I kind of jokingly say that, but it's for real. If you love each other and get along, we have a plan, it costs a few $100s. Lawyers will review this. You can get it done in a few hours on a weekend and have a very simple will put together so that you have your wishes made clear, what you want to happen with your stuff and your wealth when you're not here anymore. But something that people say, yeah, that makes sense. But more importantly, and I can speak to this as a former pastor, you need to have a living will. What does that mean? So let's go back to the scenario. You're in a car, you get in a bad accident, and you and your spouse can't communicate. Now you're in the hospital and your kids come and the doctor says, what were the wishes that your parents wanted in terms of their medical care? Now think about that. If you don't have a living will, that they can say, well, here's the living will that my mom and my dad had. These were their wishes. Guess what's going to start happening? Something you would never want your kids to do. One daughter says, well, I think dad would have wanted this. And then what happens? The son says, oh, no, dad would not have wanted that. Never, he would not have done that. Now your kids are fighting instead of trying to cope with the fact that their two parents are unresponsive in an ER room. And see, a living will takes all that away. It gives you control so that your loved ones know what your wishes are, so there's no division, there's no fighting, and it's crystal clear. But let's go back to that scenario again, and that's why you need to know about having a medical power of attorney. Let's go back to the 3 kids analogy. Okay, you and your spouse are unresponsive. You can't respond, and the doctor says, hey, the medical bills are coming in, who's gonna pay for them? Well, your kids don't have hardly any money. They're still trying to start their career off. Who's gonna pay the bills? Well, mom and dad got plenty of money in the bank, but guess what? They didn't create a medical power of attorney. They didn't appoint one of those kids to give them access, to give that kid access to their bank account to pay the medical bills and all of the other things that have to be done and dealing with whoever was in the car accident and so forth, all because there was no control given. And so that's what I call the rudiments, the basics of an estate plan. And whether you have a little or a lot, you want to have control when life spins out of control. And therefore, that's why it's important that you have an estate plan. I'm going to unpack that in a moment.